David Moore, Dallas Morning News. We just start with Tyler Smith and Donovan Wilson and also Brandon Cooks. What, if anything, they'll be able to do with them?
I mean, all three of them have improved. Dono did a little bit more yesterday than I expected, so we'll look for him to be integrated into the early work and see how that goes. Tyler is going to work with rehab today and see if we can integrate him, and Brandon will be in probably the same mode.
And also, we haven't asked you about Jordan Lewis yet this week,
Yeah.
but has he progressed to the point where he certainly could play?
Yeah, definitely. I think Jordan's very close to playing. We wanted to be smart, obviously, coming off of his injury, and and just make sure we're giving him enough time and pads and the team period work. So he is progressing and will do more today than he did last week.
Clarence Hill, Fort Worth Star Telegram. Just talk about the importance of stopping the run with those two backs this week, and certainly the dynamic things that they showed that you can do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you got to stop the running, and really, the action passing game too is, the big play opportunities that I'm sure they're going to try to challenge us with. So, I mean, and someone will be asking this question every week because we know that's how people are going to come after us. So, it's important to stop it, and keep it stopped, because these guys can, both these backs can take it to the house. So, so that's definitely a focus for us.
Todd Archer with ESPN. What makes Sauce Gardner one of the best corners in the league?
Oh, I just think, number one, coming out, remember him there at Cincinnati, just his length, ball skills. Plays with a lot of instinct. He's a really good fit for this defense, the vision defense, and ability to, concept recognition, route running. Obviously down in the red area, they put him into the boundary to stop the fade routes. So he's an excellent player.
Garrett Podell, CBS Sports. Mike, I watched your heartfelt speeches for Jordy Nelson and Josh Shitten going to the Packers Hall of Fame. With that in mind, you said Jordy, he was so easy to coach, it was automatic. Josh Shitten, great player, but more of a fun challenge. Are there players in the Cowboys who you would describe as a Jordy kind of player in terms of how you coach them, or a Josh Shitten player in terms of how you coach them as a fun challenge?
Players currently on the Cowboys?
Yes.
That's why they call them retirement speeches. So, we have a lot of personalities on our team, so you can fill in the blanks. So.
Jeff Cole with Fox 4. Coach, in your experience with quarterbacks, especially who can make tough throws, what can that process look like for them learning to prioritize protecting the football more, especially when they know they can make those tough throws?
I'm sorry, I got distracted on the first part. Which quarterback we talking about? Yeah.
In general, in your experience
Okay.
with coaching quarterbacks, especially when they can make tough throws, what can that process look like of learning to prioritize protecting the football better?
Well, I think you really get the priority to protect is number one. I mean, we just played in the game that, the turnover ratio was probably going to directly, clearly affect the outcome of the game. So you have to take that approach, not only in bad weather, but when you play, these defensive lines that you're seeing in today's game. I don't know if I've seen this much talent at that position. I think it's at an all-time high, and obviously with the rule changes and so forth and so forth. So you have to protect the ball against these defenses, and we're fortunate we get to practice against that style of defense each and every day because, the ability to create pressure up front, vision to the football, the technique of taking the ball away, that's such a big part of having success in the league. When you look at turnovers, the number one takeaway is quarterback hits and fumbles. So, I mean, it's always been number one. So that's something we spend a lot of time in protecting the passer. Our protection meetings and what we're asking our guys is more than they've done in the past, and they've done a great job of it, doing the work in the offseason and training camp. So that's all part into the development of quarterback because, if you're going to really train your quarterback in footwork and in time clocks of the passing game and so forth, it starts with protection and not just pass protection, but taking care of the ball and playing and really those competitive throws, window throws and all that. That's just the beauty of the teamwork, and that's why you need to go to training camp. That's why you need these practices because those guys need to make those tight throws, from the pocket, out of the pocket. But it is all part of the growth of a quarterback.
Skyler Dixon with the AP. I guess this is a little bit related to that. Having had to go to the rain plan last weekend, how much of you feels like this is the first chance with normal conditions to kind of show what you and Dak have been up to?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that it's going to be our first opportunity to go and dump a full game plan. I think that's the kind of game we played in last week. We were fortunate to have 2 turnovers that went into the scores 14 points off of turnovers, 13 technically, but so we had the ball 2 less times than our opponent. So I'm excited to get a healthy 9-10 series with our offense and compete against this defense.
Patrick.
Hey, Mike. Patrick Walker, DallasCowboys.com. Looking at the Jets' defense, their linebacker core, Mosley, Williams, very capable in everything they do. What makes them a big challenge to scheme against?
Well, Mosley, you could just see the experience, the instinctual awareness, obviously the physical skills. Definitely make him one of the best players at his position. So I've been very, very impressed with him. You can see he has a clear understanding of not only coverage but the protection. How their fronts and his mugging and the things that he does. So very smart player. I've been very, very impressed with them. But they fit their scheme. I mean, this is a very talented defensive front. And they all play. So their play time is very, very, very distributed equally, which I think is important. It's something we also try to do with our guys. So I see a lot of similarities there. But yeah, the linebacker group, they all have range, and they all play with instinct and go after the football. So it's a good group.
Ed.
Ed Werder, ESPN. Since Dan became the defensive coordinator and you drafted Micah, you lead the NFL in sacks and takeaways. And you've talked about the defense being the strongest part of this team. Given that, how does that affect you as the offensive play caller and in terms of how you construct the team to make sure that is emphasized?
Well, I wouldn't say it affects. It's the formula of complementary football. When you talk about complementary football, and everybody's definition may be a little differently, but it does start with defense. I mean, it starts with defense and take care of the football. Because when you go through your vision of what you want your team to look, and we call it the Cowboy 6 of the 6 fundamentals of Cowboy football. Number one is the ball security. So, it's just not a philosophy. I mean, you got to profile, draft to that, coach to it, scheme for that, have a menu of things that really has the advantage to take advantage of a Michael Parsons, and I think that's something Dan and the defensive staff have done an incredible job of, moving Mike around and make sure we're creating targeting problems for that, because he has made a huge impact. But but also you got to give the history of Dan and the coaches, as far as how we get after it in the pass game, the techniques of the defensive front, and the ability to have 10 offensive or defensive linemen that can do the job too. So I mean, so we're very, very fortunate there. So I think it's all those things, and I think you're seeing really our best defensive footballs in front of us, which is exciting, which is very exciting, especially the way we've taken the ball away the last 2 years and the production that we've had with our pass rush.
Jess.
Jess Navarez from Football Network. Coach, can you talk about Chiney Dogan, kind of the progress you've seen from him during his time and how he's really grown from the guys that he has?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he got real excited about his performance last week. You think about his path and really getting out, for all these offensive linemen, they really don't really get to work until that first padded practice, and then he had the unfortunate injury, in training camp where he was working more at tackle than guard. So to go in there on short notice and play the way he did against obviously a defensive front, particularly the defensive tackles that we have a ton of respect for. So I thought he did a really, really nice job, and I'm hoping with a week's work, if it ends up this way, that he'll be ready to go again.
Michael Gelkin, Dallas Morning News. You talked about last week how week one, a lot of incomparables, a lot of undisguided looks. Without obviously going into specifics, but generally speaking, the game script that it was last week with the score and the starter usage and all that, do you feel like that kind of plays well forward in terms of your ability to present more incomparables to future opponents that you kind of see?
The self-scout part of it, I mean, you really have 4 weeks until you're really established anything. That's what history will show you. We did things that fit the climate that we were playing in last week, and so we're playing a different climate, we're playing a different defense totally. I mean, I think you're looking at two schemes that are relatively opposite of one another. So that how we attack them will reflect what we think of them schematically, but most importantly will be the matchups and how we handle the personnel matchups.
And I've always heard that wind impacts games more than rain.
Yes.
about the elements you think really affect the team?
The rain, just having the experience that I have with bad weather, wind is number one. That's always a number one deterrent. That affects the decision making and so forth. One of the biggest issues with the rain in New York was just the handling of the balls. The balls were really wet. So so that's something that you have to learn from. So you have to factor that. But the actual rain, what was the temperature? 65 degrees. So I mean that wasn't bad at all. I mean, I'll take 65 rain any day. So but when the wind comes into play, that's a different story.
That's it. All right,
All right,
thanks, Mike.
thank you.